Welcome to The Village, a podcast focusing on the student, staff, and community member that make Village Elementary unique. We are your hosts today. I'm Ivan.
And I'm Mrs. Evans. Today we are going to have two special guests that Ivan has invited to speak to us about their involvement in the community and how they got to where they are today. Ivan, would you like to introduce our first guest?
Sure. Emporia High School has a strong tradition in wrestling, including 51 state championships and 11 team championships. Competing at state is an honor, and winning a championship is a great achievement. But today we have the only Emporia High wrestler to win not only but 4 state titles. He is the owner of E247 Fitness and continues to impact the Emporia community every day. I would like to welcome you, Dusty Spaulding, one of the best wrestlers in Emporia history.
How's it going?
Good. Thanks for coming today. Do you guys just want to tell us a little bit about how you know each other?
Sure.
You want me to go?
Yeah.
No, I've moved back to town here about 6 years ago and started helping out with the Emporia Kids Club program. And that's where I met Ivan, a little firecracker on the wrestling mat.
So what exactly is the Emporia Kids Club program?
The Kids Club program is what the youth get into when they want to wrestle in the wrestling season, which is basically from around November to the end or middle of February, or no, March, sorry. So high school gets done in February, but Kids Club's done in March. So anybody over the age of 5 and up until high school goes to the Kids Club.
So do you come, they practice, do you compete in different competitions, or how does that work?
Yeah, every week the Kids Club, sends people to, Wichita, Topeka, Salina, Kansas City.
Burlington.
Yeah, wherever it's at that week. Then we send the kids to it. And we have a novice program, which is anybody that's wrestled just a year or two. Only wrestles guys that have only wrestled for a year or two. So it's kind of equal competition. The first couple of years you get into it.
Yeah, and then they have open, which I'm in. I've wrestled for like 6 years, and then I've been in open for about half of that, 3 years maybe.
Yeah, so then they wrestle guys that actually have some experience after the first 2 years.
Cool. So let's go back in time a little bit. How did you get involved in wrestling in the first place?
My dad wrestled in college, and he ended up started coaching at the Wamego Kids Club back when I was like 5, I guess, is when I kind of started, and just kind of sat and watched practice for a while. Started doing it and found out I was pretty good at it, so kept going.
We didn't mention this in the intro, but Ivan said you went to one of his favorite schools. So where did you go after high school to wrestle?
After high school, I was a 4-year starter at University of Nebraska, so Cornhusker.
Now I have to ask, because I am an Oklahoma State grad, which has a strong wrestling tradition also. Any interest in becoming a Cowboy, or you were straight to the Huskers?
Actually, it was between OSU and Nebraska where I was going to go.
Okay. What made Nebraska win out?
They offered more scholarship money.
Okay.
So the price, basically.
Yeah, free education, right?
Yeah, you bet.
You got to go for that. Right, Ivan?
Yep.
Is that your goal?
Yeah.
Do you want to be a wrestler in college? Is that your long-term plan?
MMA, all that stuff.
After wrestling, you went into MMA, is that correct?
No, actually, I ended up, doing more of the family stuff, for about 7 years after I got done with college. And it was either kind of start my career, and I'm actually a hearing specialist, so I test people's ears and fit them with hearing aids and, adjust them and whatever they need in regards to their hearing and hearing aids.
Did you know that, Ivan?
No.
That's kind of like my other side job.
Are you by Planet Sub?
No, I'm over by where Dynamic Disc is.
Oh, yeah. Dynamic Disc.
And so that's kind of the day job, well, one of my day jobs, I guess. And so, yeah, I started that, and then about 7 years into it, I just kind of got a wild hair when I turned 30 and wanted to not live with regrets. So I kind of just started, training a little bit more and getting into it, and I ended up having some success with MMA as well. So I kind of just kept that train rolling until I couldn't handle it anymore as far as taking care of the kids and their sports and them growing up. And and stopped it when I was about 35, 36, I think. So 35, I think.
So, do you guys still do MMA? Like, I know they do jiu-jitsu and all that stuff at E24. Do you train people?
Me personally, I don't train people as much anymore. I have a boxing trainer and multiple jiu-jitsu trainers.
Lucas.
Yeah, Lucas is the boxing coach, you bet. So for the most part, we don't specifically do MMA, but the guys that do compete in MMA go to our boxing classes and they go to the jiu-jitsu classes. So
like Logan?
Yeah. So we got guys that go to both of those classes because they cover kind of the stand-up aspect of MMA and then the ground game of MMA as well.
Well, one of the first things that came to mind was, all of these very physical activities you've been doing. And you kind of said when you couldn't handle it did you have any like injuries or?
Oh yeah.
Not like career-ending injuries or nothing. I mean, I think the worst I got was like a black eye, so it's nothing that would stop me from doing it. It's just a matter of getting into tougher competition. Once I finished the amateur career, I think 7-1, something like that maybe, and then professional was 2-1. But when you kind of start getting to where you can't train as much, and for tougher competition, that's really just not worth doing at that time.
It's very time consuming.
Correct.
So it's not just about being successful in a sport. You can apply that to everything. So do you think your commitment and effort to sports has helped you be successful in your careers and in life, etc.?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that how your attitude towards the sport and competition and preparation and all that does affect every aspect of your life. So if I dedicate my time and energy and focus into something, whether it's sports, business, whatever, family, then that just makes you better at any of those aspects.
When Ivan and I were obviously Googling you before you came on, we were doing some research. There was something that popped up about Emporia Legends Give Back. Was that something you were involved in?
I'd have to see it. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff I'm kind of involved with, I guess. But
So like right here is what we were looking at.
Oh, okay. Yep, I know exactly what that is. That's actually our summer camp.
Oh, yeah.
And what we do is we bring in people from, before that, from our kind of time frame era or, state title teams or any state champs that are former, from Emporia High. We bring them back in the summer and have them teach a session or a day of a camp and, try and get, like I said, the old school mentality to the new school kids.
Well, I should probably go because I have never been to a wrestling match. I hate to admit it to you too. And when I have watched, I think the person that's winning and then they lose. I don't even understand how it all works. So I should go to try to get educated.
And it's not the easiest sport to follow and understand, that's for sure.
No, but really what it is you have a stand, you have a match number, you have a mat number. So when you get there, you either have track wrestling on your phone you could go to, and it tells you who you're wrestling, mostly sometimes what their team name is, and then it gives you their match number, the match number that you're wrestling, and then you have to go to a mat number, which they pick, and then when it gets to that match number after 1, 2, 3, like say you're 4, you have to go wait till 4, and when you're up at 4, you tell them your name, you either are green or red, you have to put a leg band on, and really take down a points, and really if you could win by points or you could get a pin.
See, it's simple.
Yeah, it's so simple. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. I just can't tell who should get the points. That's the problem.
Really, like when you get a takedown or something, if you get their legs and take them down, that's 1 or 2. Two, yeah. And then you have 2 points, whatever your color is, green. The green gets 2 points, and then they have that up on the scoreboard, and then.
Are there how many rounds?
3.
3 rounds. So, okay, so
1 minute, 3
If
3
you
minutes.
get a pin, you'll automatically win that round?
Yes.
You win the match total.
You win the match. If you pin, it's done.
Yes.
Okay. Good to know. So then at the end of the 3 rounds, whoever has the most points wins.
Yeah, there's just kind of
Okay, that
superior
makes
positions, and you kind of want to dominate those areas. But if you're interested, I'll plug in our senior night for high school. It's going on tonight at 5:30.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll be going to that too.
Very good.
Yeah, it's for the high school boys and girls, actually.
Varsity?
So, yeah, varsity boys, varsity girls.
And then they have the
senior night.
spotlight on one match.
Yeah, we got fog machines, lights, and
We
everything.
have fog
Oh, wow.
machines.
Well, unfortunately, people will listen to this after tonight,
that's no
but
worries.
is it every year they have this
Yeah.
same event?
We'll have senior night around this time each year. Yeah.
Okay. Are you like an assistant coach or a
Yeah, I'm
coach?
assistant varsity coach for
Oh,
there. You
okay.
bet.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So I kind of do some of the off-season program, kids club, and the high school program as well.
So if there are kids listening or parents listening and they want to get their kids involved, what would be the route for them to take?
Matt Collins is the head coach for the kids club, so it kind of depends on the age. If they're in the middle school, they have a certain contact. If they're in high school, there's a contact, and then also through the kids club.
Who was your wrestling coach at first?
Wrestling coach I was through my dad growing up in kids club, and then Coach Simons in high school, and then in college it was Eric Aiken and Terry Brands and Mark Manning.
Where did you wrestle with your dad at that time when you were there?
Well, we kind of bounced around. Like I had kind of a home kids club, and most of the time it was Emporia, but my dad
So important, yeah.
Yeah, we'd go around to Junction City, Manhattan, Wamego. We'd just travel around to different practices to get different.
Techniques.
Yeah.
So who was your coach in MMA?
MMA, actually, a couple of my friends. One had just gotten out of the UFC at the time.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let me stop you right there. Who was your who did you do MMA for?
Oh,
Where were
who
you
I
at?
like what gym I train out of? It was called American Top Team HD.
Where was that at?
It was in Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
I lived in KC at the time. The American Top Team is like the top franchise that provided for UFC fighters. So it's like a franchise company, which is nice.
So who was your coach in MMA again?
MMA was Jason High and LC Davis. Those are my two main instructors. My cornerman
Yeah.
was also Luke Gorton, which is my boxing coach.
He coaches you too?
He was he was in my corner. He was the corner man.
Are you older than he's older than you?
We're same age.
Oh. So you were the same age when he was your coach though?
Yeah.
Okay. What inspired you?
Just it's kind of one of them deals where you're just going through life and want to kind of test yourself. And I hadn't competed in a while, and that kind of bothers competitors after a little bit, and you kind of want to
Yeah.
just test yourself, and that's the next thing I can do. After you're 30 years old, you can't really do too much, and as far as competition wise, well, serious competition anyway.
How'd you get involved with E24/7? What was it before that? And was it what I'm from understanding from my point of view, I thought it was like a car shop or something.
Yeah, I think that building was originally like a dealership, a long time repair shop.
Yeah.
And then after that was Sunflower Gymnastics for I don't know how many years, probably 20 years.
Oh, Sunflower Gymnastics?
Yeah, they were there before they went to the other building.
Yeah, because I remember there was a big wall, with that doorway. Then they had that big wall on the other side
Yep.
for when we were doing truth wrestling and all that.
So then it originally started out as just a fighting gym. We just had a bunch of, when MMA got big and, kind of blew up
right.
around here, we had, I don't know, probably 20, 25 people wanting to compete, at the time. So we started just a fighting gym, MMA gym. And then it kind of morphed into a 24-hour fitness center. So I kind of just expanded it and, doubled up my space. And
So how'd you get your fobs made? Did you just-
yeah, those you could just order online.
Yeah.
You just have to get the system. And I got an engineer that does all that stuff.
do you get them in and so you could just give them to people too?
Yeah. I mean, as long as they're paid their monthly dues, they get a key fob, and we keep it active.
Yep. So how do you think training helps students and kids that want to do that stuff?
It kind of keeps them out of trouble. Just kind of one of them deals where, if you exert yourself, you're kind of constantly testing, your boundaries and your body and your mindset.
busy on that and not busy doing some.
Yeah,
that you get you in
sometimes
trouble.
playing video games too, and
Yeah.
gets them off the gaming systems and keeps them, like I said, keeps them busy. Then sometimes they get home and they're too tired to play video games.
Good.
Definitely, I would be.
So you have any questions?
For all of our kids listening, what advice do you have for them?
Get into something. I mean, I guess we have a good, avenue. If not, I have a lot of resources to, put them in the right direction. But if they're looking to get into some type of activity, sport, extracurricular stuff, just give it a try. I mean, it doesn't hurt. Most programs will let you even try it out for a little bit to see if you like it. If you do, you do. You don't, you don't. But, no harm, no foul, just getting into something and see if you like it. Because I get kids that are coming in and they come into jiu-jitsu class and they're like, I didn't think I'd like this, and it's just a whole different world once they start getting into it, but we teach more of the self-defense aspect, in the boxing and jiu-jitsu and
Yeah.
whatever it's not like we're in there in boxing class just punching people and giving people black eyes. It's all structured. It's barely any contact unless they're wanting to actually compete in any boxing tournaments. Shoot, probably over half the kids that come in there don't want to compete. They just want to learn, the ins and outs of the boxing technique, really. So it's not like anything that's, it's a good workout because you're not used to using those muscles and punching. And we got cardio kickboxing at the gym too. So that's usually some adults do that while the kids are on there doing the boxing class. So it's kind of, we kind of kill two birds with one stone there.
Absolutely.
So
I think that's great advice, though, just giving anything a try, whether it's this and whether you want to be competitive and get your education paid for through something like this. And it doesn't have to be wrestling, or it could be anything, but just giving something new a try, because you never know if it's going to be
Good for you.
Something that you love, and something you might do for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I've heard that a million times. Kids didn't think they'd like something to come in and be like, man, this is so fun.
Thank you for coming.
All right. Well, so nice to meet you. And
you too.
Good luck with senior night tonight and all your future endeavors.
You got it. Appreciate it. You too. Thank you.
Our next guest is someone I look up to a lot. He also works at E24/7 and happens to be my boxing coach. He is a great guy that brings lots of energy to everything he does. Please welcome Lucas Gorton.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So do you guys want to start out and just tell us a little bit about how you know each other and what you guys do?
Sure.
You want me to start it?
Yeah.
I met Ivan when I moved back to Emporia 2 years ago, probably 3 years ago. I was helping coach the kids club wrestling team, and Ivan was on it, and I kind of gravitated towards him. He's a hard worker and talented little guy, and so I would coach with him. Then I started my boxing club 2 years ago, and he started off and came to that during the times he didn't have other sports he was doing. He would come in there, and I'm looking forward to getting him back in there once he gets done wrestling.
Yeah, I'll be in there in the Spartan Boxing Club here soon.
For boxing club, how does that work? You have practices? Do you go to competitions?
So it's set up for many different ways of doing it. But yes, the main goal of the team is I have a competition team where we travel around the country and compete against other youth. We have from 8 years old to 50 years old age group, categories there. So the practices, we practice 3 days a week. Half the kids, I'd say, are doing it to learn how to compete and go compete on our team, and then half of them are just there for the exercise or to learn some self-defense and stuff like that. So we kind of mix them all together, but I do my best to separate the groups accordingly. But Ivan will be trying to compete at some point, I think.
Yes.
So you haven't competed yet with boxing?
Nope.
No, just wrestling.
Yeah.
Lucas, if you don't mind just kind of telling us a little bit about yourself and where you came from, how you got involved in all this.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Emporia, Kansas, graduated high school, moved away to Kansas City, and I went to Johnson County Community College to pole vault. So I did that for a couple of years. When I got out of that, we'll skip a bunch of stuff here, but I had a godson who was in middle school at the time that wanted to box, and that's kind of my introduction to boxing. I competed in MMA a little bit, and I've trained. I wrestled in high school. I come from a different world, but my godson wanted to box, so I told him, hey, I'm not a boxing coach. I don't really know how to help you. So we went and sought out the best boxing coach we could, which led us to a place called Turner, Kansas. which has the number one amateur boxing club in the country. And we kind of just fell in with them. Their head coach, John Brown, took me under his wing, and we coached my godson to a very successful amateur boxing career where he was a ringside world champion, a Golden Gloves champion, and now he helps me coach when he can. He lives in Gardner, Kansas, though. I coached under John as an assistant coach for about 10 years there in Turner, and then when we moved back to Emporia, I decided to start my own club here as a head coach, so that's where we are.
Yeah. Do you do all of your training out of E24/7?
For the most part. All of our equipment's there, our rings there, so all of our practices are done in E24/7. Thank you, Dusty Spaulding. We also, sometimes I'll take them to the hill over at the college and make them run the hill and do some conditioning stuff. So I try to keep it interesting for them. But yes, our practices, we work out of E24/7.
So I just assumed you had boxed your whole life.
Nope. In fact, when I grew up here in Emporia, there was zero boxing. And I didn't even know this stuff existed until I went to Turner, lived in Gardner and went to Turner's boxing club. It's just like kids wrestling, pretty much. And I don't think a lot of people understand it, right? They think boxing and they look at what they see on TV, right? Bloody knockouts and pretty brutal sport. The amateur side of it, or Olympic style boxing, however you want to look at it, is structured a lot like kids wrestling. We go to these tournaments and it's just a gym packed full of parents and grandparents and kids competing. They wear big protective equipment, headgear, big soft gloves. So less than 1% of amateur bouts end in what you would call a knockout or some kid getting concussed, at that point. So safety is the number one factor there. And I really don't think people understand that when we start talking about boxing. With the headgear and the big gloves, you don't see the blood. You don't see the, big bruises and knockouts and stuff. So for the youth, it's a much safer introduction to the sport. Of course, they can move on to the professionals afterwards if they want, but no. I pretty much started as a boxing coach. I was taught boxing from the coach's perspective, and I've always been a coach, so it kind of come natural to me. I fell in love with the sport, seeing what it does for these kids. Keep kids that otherwise would be in the system or in jail out of those situations. I've seen it change kids' lives. Like my godson, for example, was 240 pounds when I met him. The last time he competed, he was 160 pounds, and 5 years older. So I've seen it just kids that will dedicate themselves to anything like this, boxing, wrestling, other sports, gives them a structure that they can live with forever that'll help them throughout their lives.
Well, and it just goes to show that you were obviously a dedicated athlete in pole vault, so you can transfer that.
Competition's competition.
Exactly.
Is the way I see it, yeah.
I agree.
How did boxing impact your life, other ways going to school, and skills have you learned?
Boxing impacted my life more in a way to impact other lives, if I could say it like that.
Yeah.
Like through boxing, I've met many great younger people, men and women, and I've watched it transform them, right? I've watched it show them what they're capable of doing, because it's not an easy thing to get in there in front of another kid that's been training, that's ready to compete with you, punch you, you're going to punch them back. Any kid or person that does that instantly has my respect when they go in there and do that. And then for the rest of their lives, I think everything else just gets a little bit easier. They've already conquered a fear that's on a level that 99.5% of people would never even attempt. So it just shows them that they're capable of big things. Whether they win or lose, I don't think it really matters. I think they go in there, they compete hard, and it gives them a confidence about themselves and a fearlessness, if you will, to go about the rest of their lives. When we first started, there was a lot of younger kids, like I expected, which is what I expected from Emporia, honestly, was to be a bunch of the younger kids, your age, maybe even a little bit younger. But it's turned out to be this 16 to 25-year-old group that's really the biggest, and that's where most of the competitors are coming from. And I think what it is school sports, they take these kids away, and I totally encourage that. I've got a lot of good little boxers that wrestle, so I make them go wrestle. I tell them to go wrestle because I think that's good for them. And then some of them play basketball, football. So I lose a lot of my kids during that time, but hopefully in the summer times and when they're off, they come back. And so far they have.
What do you think it is about boxing that draws them to you?
Boxing draws a lot of people to it initially, right? So for every 30 kids that walks through the door, I pretty much expect 20 of them to be in and out within, a month or so, just because it's not easy. It's hard. If I'm preparing them for competitions, I take that very seriously. I have their safety in mind. Their moms are going to be watching them compete.
Yeah.
And so I take it seriously, and I make sure that they do it right. So we're hard on them. We make sure that they're physically in shape. There's a lot of discipline, a lot of hard work involved, and that just fleshes out a lot of kids. But I think it's different for every kid. I always ask them why they want to compete if they want to, and I'll get answers all over the spectrum. But honestly, it really comes down to the ones that I've had that have had the most success. And this is a general statement, not an exclusive statement, but they come from rougher backgrounds where maybe they haven't had a structured childhood growing up, or maybe they get into a little bit of trouble. Those kind of kids, they tend to gravitate towards it and stick with it. They're a little bit more willing to do the stuff that isn't so fun, to get an opportunity to get some attention for a positive reason,
So, did you play any other sports?
I played them all, probably. In high school, I played football, wrestled, track. Growing up, I played a lot of baseball, but stopped doing that because of track in high school, because you have to pick one. Of course, I did grow up boxing a little bit because my grandfather did. Not in competition, but just learning how to do that. But I always wished Emporia would have had something like that. I wish we would have known about it, and that's why one of the big reasons why I brought it here. So far, I think it's doing good, and it looks like we're just going up. So there's tons of kids out there that don't fit into the team sport or the school activity. Those kids need something to do.
Absolutely.
And it really feels like we're getting that group of kids in. So that kind of helps us all, if you ask me. Keeps them out of trouble, keeps them off the streets, and if they fall in love with it, if they find success,
They stick to it so they don't get in trouble.
they do, and they want to. It's something that they want to do.
So how did you get involved with E24/7?
Well, Dusty Spaulding, the owner of E24/7, is since high school, been one of my best buddies. So I knew of the gym there because he opened it up. Quite a while ago. I used to train at E24/7 back when it was more of an MMA gym.
Yeah,
with those
they
guys.
first started there and it was just MMA.
So I worked out with those guys a lot when I was coming back and forth from Kansas City. But when I moved back to town, I told Dusty knew I was going to try and start a club. So we were talking and we were looking at places to, rent out or get that we could put the club in. And then he's like, well, we got the gym. Why don't we just do it there? Perfect. So that's what we did. And I really think it worked out good for both of us. It gives more eyes to my program from people just coming to the gym, and then vice versa for him. So yeah, that's how we got E24.
What was your question?
I was just going to say, before yesterday when we talked to Dusty, I knew nothing about wrestling and nothing about boxing. So I'm already very enlightened, and I think what's great about it too is helping these kids, but it's something they can do forever.
Yeah, this coming week in Vegas, there's what they call a Masters tournament where there's 74, 73, 72-year-old competitors in there competing at that age. It's amazing.
And even if you don't want to compete, just the health benefits and like keeping active and all that, I think
that's what like Tajun and.
That's more than half of them. It's not for everyone to go compete, for sure. But the one, and I don't encourage it. Like I shouldn't say that, but I don't go up to kids and say, hey, you should fight, you should go compete, because I believe that is a personal choice, that it's something you have to want to do if you're going to have any success in it. So when they come to me and they tell me that, then we start the process of getting them ready for.
So I'm probably gonna want to compete.
He said it since day one, so I know he wants to.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
I can see that.
He's a little fireball. But he'll be very good. He's got a lot of the natural, in my opinion, God gives people skills, some skill sets here, and he got a lot of those on the athletic scale, right? He's very fast, very agile, very strong for his size. So some kids are like that, and they pick it up pretty easily. There's a whole nother side of it, and that's what I like about wrestling and boxing. It's not just your athletic ability that makes you succeed. It's your work ethic, your determination, your willingness to continue when it's hard, your toughness and all that stuff. So you get to see everything about a person when they go in there.
Well, and like you said, if you can persevere in that type of setting, it's going to translate to other aspects of your life. And I was raised, I know this is very different, but showing horses and cattle. And it's, my dad always said it's kind of cheesy, but you don't saddle up to ride second,
I
which
like it.
Like
I
why,
like
if you're going to do something, you should try to be the best at it. And so I think that, kind of filters through your mentality, and you're not always going to win. You're not always going to succeed, but if you're going to put the time into something, you might as well try to be good at it.
Yeah.
I think your dad's absolutely right. I mean, you play to win the game, right? You compete to do your best. I mean, it's the thing, but by doing your best should put you on top more often than not.
And like you said, it's not always going to work out, but, hopefully you put yourself in the position to succeed.
Right. And in sports like you did with judging, a lot of that, and boxing as well, because there's amateur boxing, you don't get in there and knock kids out. So you have to learn how to box, and there's 3 rounds for every bout. There's short fights, but you've got 5 judges you have to impress. And really, it's subjective. So you may have done better than the other kid in everybody else's eyes, but if the judges say he did, then he'll get the win. So I don't look at records like wins and losses in this sport as much as get out there, do the best you can, and we're trying to build a end product, the best boxer we can build at the end of the.
So it's really not a knockout for kids. It's who does the best in the judge's eyes. So it's like
They have criteria.
How would I don't want to say it that way, but like in the judge's eyes, you have to win in his eyes, not other people's. So
Yeah, they're the ones that judge the fight and score the fight, if you will. So you can score points. Basically, points are scored on your face and the front of your body, and they have to be clean punches, right? So the knuckle part of the glove has to land on those parts of your body without hitting any of your arm or glove or whatever. So that's a clean score, and then they basically tally those up throughout the bout. And there's some other aspects that they're looking at, but it's who can hit more and not get hit is what it comes down to.
So if you hit him in the gut,
That's why I tell you,
fell on the floor.
Well, if you can't, they can fall on the floor, and it can be over then if they quit or if they can't continue. But like I said, most of the time it goes all 3 rounds, right? I mean, I've been involved in I've cornered, as the coach over 400 matches now, or around 400 matches now, and I've never seen a kid get shut off like completely knocked unconscious. It's never
rare.
been with one of my guys, and actually I don't think I've ever had a guy get finished or before the fight ended. That's not true. We have, but sometimes the referees will stop it if they feel like it's not a fair match, because it is amateur boxing. It's not for money. It's for kids to learn and participate in a sport, so they do keep you guys' safety in mind. That's the number one thing.
So what did you do as a kid to get in where you are today?
One of the biggest aspects of my life has been athletics in one way or another. I've always been involved with it, and I've really not had a lot of downtime, if you will, so boring time where that's when kids get in trouble. I had that time when I was younger, and I did get in some trouble, but mainly having a structure and something that you're dedicated to, I feel like is so valuable, especially for young boys. They have to have something that they've chosen themselves, they're not being pressured into, and that they have a passion for. And if they find that, and then you can give them the resources they need to compete in it, to excel in it, to do it, you'd be surprised. You may have the worst kid in the school in trouble every day, but if he found that thing, it would change him, and he would become focused in school and home. He would do the things he has to do to continue to be able to do what he wants to do. And that's very powerful for young boys and girls.
Well, and I think, too, it doesn't, for those that are listening, they're like, I have zero interest in boxing or wrestling. It doesn't have to be a boxing. It doesn't have to be wrestling. It doesn't have to be a sport. It can be anything that they want to do and
be active
doing, whether it's academic.
And want to be good at.
And want to be good at, yeah.
Because that's what it comes down to. It doesn't matter. Like, you could be an artist, you could be a painter, you could be a singer, you could be a dancer, you could be in athletics, but if you have a will to succeed in that, then you will have to work hard, and you will have to put time in, and you will have to do it more than the other people that are doing that. And it doesn't matter what it is. So that's what gives them the edge. That's what gives them the skills they need, tools they need to be successful as an adult.
Who was your coach as a kid?
Mr. Simons. Curtis Simons was my wrestling coach in high school. Superb coach, great guy all around. I really always remember him. I like him a lot. He did a lot for me. My dad was my coach growing up in baseball and flag football, stuff like that. I didn't play much soccer, but I tried it. I had 2 older brothers, which I guess you could say were kind of like coaches. And then John Brown is probably the biggest influence on my life as far as a coach, and that's who is currently my boxing coach, or still a boxing coach in Turner, Kansas. Yeah.
What is it about them that has been so impactful?
That's a good question, and they are completely opposite of each other, which is why I think it's kind of funny. But Curtis Simon's he's a calm, very calm. Like, he's not in your face yelling. He can motivate you, but he didn't have that tough wrestling coach side to him. He just approached it differently. But his knowledge of the sport and the way he would, get it through to his wrestlers. I mean, we were very successful wrestling team in high school, and he's in the Hall of Fame now. So it's not just me who respected Curtis Simons. He is just a good coach, and he just had a way of working with each kid individually and getting the best out of them. John Brown, on the other hand, is the old mean, tough boxing coach that some people would not like or not gravitate towards because he's so rough and to the point, no fluff, no sugar coating anything. But that guy has done more than anyone I can think of for the youth of, maybe for this country. I mean, he was president of USA Boxing for a decade, and when I met him, he retired, 4 or 5 years ago from that. But we call him the godfather of amateur boxing because he's got so many national titles and he's built so many national champions. He was president of the whole organization, so his knowledge is second to none. And if you're willing to listen to him and have thick enough skin to stick around him, then you can learn a lot. But I just respect him because of what he's done for the community, his community especially, but all around the country, and what he did for me and my godson. I mean, we walked in there and I just told him, I said, look, I'm from wrestling, and my guy wants to compete, but how do I help him? And he said, you came to the right place, and literally took us under his wing, maybe more so me. And I literally sat by this guy, and we traveled around the country for 8 years, and he paid for everything, right? He's paying for these kids to compete and paying for our travel and hotel and all that stuff. So I just learned so much about boxing, for one, and life from this guy. He's done so much. So they will always have my respect. That's that.
What was your childhood like?
Oh, boy. I was the youngest of 3 boys. I had, if I would say, the perfect mom and dad, almost. I mean, my parents were together. They loved each other. They loved their kids. They did everything they could to bring us up, the best they could. And I feel like they did a good job. Having 2 older brothers was rough at first. I was the little one, and I got picked on and taught some lessons. But they're both good guys to have on your side as you grow up. So my childhood, if I had to rate it 1 out of 10, I'd give it a 9. It would have been a 10 if boxing was involved. But yeah, so yeah, I have no complaints. And when I'm working with these kids, so Junior, my foster son, who came here from Topeka and Lawrence and whatnot, and let's just say his upbringing was the opposite, as polar opposite of mine as it could be. It took a long time to get him to trust me or to open up to me, because I'm just this guy that doesn't come from where he came from and doesn't understand. And I tell him right when I meet him, I said, look, I don't know what it's like to go through what you've gone through. And I tell them what I just told you. I think I had kind of the perfect upbringing. But I'm here for your best interest. I'm only here for your best interest. I don't want your money. I don't want your belts, anything like that. I want to see you do the best you can. So that's, I guess I would answer your question by, I had a great childhood. Nothing really, really bad ever happened. What about you?
It's all right. Not the best I could be.
But you're going to be the best you can be. See, end of the day is I end up where I'm at, having whatever childhood I had. Now, Junior, you can see where he's going, right? He actually graduated high school. He's working. He's having so much success in boxing, and he's going to turn pro here pretty soon. And he came from probably in April. But he came from the completely different, a really, really rough, let's just say that, upbringing. But he's still able to make something out of himself because he's so dedicated. He's so driven, and he's such a hard worker. It does not matter. Some guys get it's easier for some people because they had handouts or whatever you want to call it, easier road coming up. But if you take it within yourself, dedicate yourself, work hard, anybody can do it. And that's been proven over and over and over. You can find success.
When it comes down to it, when you enter that ring, it doesn't matter what's happened before you get in there. I should rephrase that.
It's true.
When you get in there, it doesn't matter what life has thrown at you. It matters what dedication you've put in, what work you've put in, how prepared you are, and all that other stuff is just gone.
You're absolutely right. It's that moment. And in that moment, I've seen kids from every walk of life surprise you, do really good or do really bad when you would expect the other. But, yep, it is what is inside of a person that comes out when they're in there.
Yeah, I get it.
Well, I guess I have 2 more questions, just kind of basic. Before I get to those, do you have any more, Ivan? No?
No more questions, Ivan?
First off, if we have any parents listening or kids listening that want to get involved, how would they go about doing that?
We actually sent the easiest way to go about it is probably to get on our Facebook page, Spartan Boxing Club - Emporia, Kansas. And you want to put Emporia in there because there are lots of Spartan Boxing Clubs, come to find out. We practice at E24/7. You can call up there. You can call myself. My phone number is listed if you see any of our flyers or on the Facebook page, on the Instagram social media pages. We practice Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. This age group for elementary school age is 6 to 7 or 7 to 8, depending on how old they are and what level they're at. I kind of split them up according to where they're at with their experience level and all that. But you can call me, set something up. I do during the day. I'm doing individual, personal lessons or small group lessons. Some people would rather do that than come to the actual classes. Contact is optional. So most of these kids that come to the 6 to 7 o'clock, that class is actually no contact. We teach them the fundamentals of boxing, where they should start, right? Teach them how to have a good stance, how to move, how to throw punches properly, protect themselves.
Is that what I went to?
Yeah, that's what you started at, right?
What are the classes where you don't?
The next class up, which I call the advanced or the competitive team, is where there's some contact that's optional. Now, if you're going to compete, you have to have contact. Okay, so we spar. We have a ring in the gym, and we spar. Very controlled sparring. There's only sparring there if I'm there to supervise it. And we wear our protective. I take these kids' safety very seriously, and I make promises to their parents, that I'm going to do absolutely everything I've been trained to do or been taught by all the training we take in USA Boxing and Golden Gloves Boxing. Mouthpiece, headgear, big gloves every single time. No excuses. And a lot of them don't like wearing that stuff, and they try hard. The older ones try hard not to do it, but we make them because I want to keep these guys safe.
The only thing I did not like when I first stepped in that ring was the big gloves because they were so heavy.
So heavy, make your arms tired, right? Yep. But it's better than your face getting all busted up all the time. So, yeah. So you can find us on Facebook. You can call me, find my number there. I've been handing out flyers, and I've done some radio interviews. And but the easiest way to do it is get a hold of E24/7 or just show up, and you'll see us in there. Right when you walk in the front door, you can see us practicing in the back. Can't miss us. And on our social media, we're also posting our results of our competition. So we're like this weekend, we'll leave tomorrow. We're going to Hutchinson for Golden Gloves State Championships.
For junior?
Junior, Mercedes, and Xavier are going to compete in that one. A couple weeks after that, Riker goes to Independence, Missouri for the Silver Glove National Tournament, which is a really big deal that he qualified for that. So yeah, we have in this year Emporia's first ever Golden Gloves National Qualifier with junior. That's the 18 and over group. And then our first ever Silver Gloves National Qualifier, and my son Riker
13.
He's 13. It's a 18 and under group. So
the last thing I always like to ask people, which I think you've given a lot of this already, but any parting words of wisdom or advice for people listening?
Yeah, like I tell everybody. So I try to recruit every kid I run into because I believe we need it. It's a numbers game, and if I get 10 of them, maybe one of them will really take to it. But if you have kids out there, grandkids out there, godchildren, whatever they are, that you think maybe are in trouble too much or too rough to do something like boxing, that you think a sport like that would actually make it worse, I am here to tell you that I have never seen a case of that. I have seen some of the roughest, hardest to work with kids with the meanest attitudes or whatever come into a sport like that and get transformed very quickly to get a level of humility and respect for their opponents and stuff like that that will blow your mind. So bring those kids and let them try it. That's my, the kids in the probation system or your kids that otherwise haven't found something that they can take to, like, or a sport or an activity. I think boxing is a great thing for them to try, and you may be surprised. Nobody comes into the boxing gym and acts like they're a bully, okay? Because it's not the place to do that. You've got a bunch of people that are willing to do this, that practice this, to do it for a sport. They fall right in line. I've never had a problem with a single kid that's come through those doors as far as disciplinary actions or, problems with that. And then I'm trying to get kids off of their phones, video games, computers. They go to school, they use all that stuff, they learn it. That's great. They need to. And then when they go home, a lot of them are just stuck on those devices. And I think there's better things to do with their time. I want to take those kids as well. So bring them, give them a shot. If they like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. But we got room for every kid in Emporia to come
awesome.
try us out. Yep. So that's the goal.
Well, thank you so much. And we have a website where we post our podcasts. And so I will put on your contact information.
Yes.
So they can go there and
Perfect.
links to your Facebook page and stuff. So it should be easy for them to find. So
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me, Ivan.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thanks for coming.
Hey, you're welcome. You're welcome.
All right.
All right.